we can all be time benders if we are given the right tools. That one shoulder tap has just cost me between 10 to 20% of my productivity. How you treat your time is very much a mirror to how much you value and respect yourself. From a Vedic perspective, there is a teaching on 3 different concepts of time. Again, I know that some of you, like, your head might be hurting right now. It's okay. My head was hurting the first time I heard this as well. Welcome and join me to learn the time management hacks that they do not teach you at school or anywhere else, to be frank. If you feel like you are constantly running out of time, maybe you're one of those people who's always late to appointments and just constantly in a rush, this episode is for you. Because today I am going to share the time management hacks and insights that they don't teach you at school so that you can accomplish everything that you set out to do and so much more. Let's dive in. Welcome to Resonance, a podcast for ambitious, heart-led humans craving more balance, depth, and aliveness in their lives. I'm your host, Vic, health coach, yoga teacher, facilitator, and fellow high achiever, learning to live in tune with my nervous system, not against it. And this space is here to remind you that you can have it all. The career, the success, the fulfillment, all aligned with your truth. Through honest conversations, expert insights, and practical tools, we'll explore how to work with your body, mind, emotions, and spirit, not against them. And the best part, you don't have to stay stuck in survival mode to get there. Because true well-being is not about being perfect. It's about being in resonance. Let's dive in. Welcome. All right. Well, this week, at the time of the recording of this episode, we have just gone into daylight savings mode here in New Zealand. So the clocks have turned forward. We have lost an hour. I always get confused, so I had to think there for a moment. And you know what? That tends to throw a lot of people out of routine. I don't know about you. It definitely does for me because I have a wonderful routine. And this was the first year that I really noticed actually how much even just like an hour can have a profound impact on my day-to-day life. And as I was sort of moving through the week, I was having these random thoughts of like, time. Who agreed that it is the time? Like, who decided that we're all going to move clocks? And how did we all agree on this? Like, who's making up this time? You know, and it was kind of just this fun little, I guess, self-inquiry. Welcome to a day in the life of my head that was going on. And that's kind of what is going to tie into today's episode quite a bit. You know, my mom always used to run late to everything: meetings, appointments, flights, trains, buses. It was such an interesting experience growing up as someone who was born into a very strict kind of family on one side and then spent quite a lot of time in Germany, which, you know, if there's anything you know about Germans is that they are very punctual and very much on time. And then I lived in Switzerland, which again, you know, Swiss watches and everything's just so like polished and picture perfect. And the trains literally arrive like to the second on time. I still don't know how they do it. It's wild. It's like clockwork. And then to have that kind of really opposite dynamic. And it was like this from early childhood. And to be honest, to this day is like still quite a big pet peeve of mine. But I've just learned how to work around it. You know, I'd say, hey, like we need to be ready by 4:30 when we actually only need to be ready by 5 o'clock, but then it means that we actually end up leaving on time. You know, it's like, it's wonderful. So this is actually a nice little life hack that I will add to the list because it just came to me a bit later on. So Look, this is the bit of the pre-frame. Now, some of the hacks that I'm going to share with you today are super tangible. You can like implement them right away and you will already see benefits in how you operate, how you perceive time, and how much you get done. Some of these, however, are bigger mindset and perspective shifts. So just be mindful that I might throw some alternative ways of thinking, maybe some things that you haven't necessarily heard before out there. And that is all intentional. These shifts will take some time, pun slightly intended. So I hope you enjoy the episode. Let's get straight into it and begin with the definition of time. Because like, what is time? You know, it's like we're always running out of time. It's like we never really stop to think. It's like, wait, what is time actually? And the funny thing is that like it's actually made up. Like I, in preparation for this episode, was doing a little bit of research, and it was so interesting to see that like even the definitions of time cannot agree on what time is, because really there's kind of what we have been indoctrinated to believe time to be, and that we all collectively agree on, and hence kind of have a functional society around. And at the same time, there's also this reality that all time is now, because you have nothing but this present moment. There is like, as I just said that sentence, that's already in the past. There's like, you are now, you are here now. And that's like, can be a little bit mind blowing. It can be like a little bit like, whoa, what just happened for some people. And that's okay. Just stick with me. I promise you, we will get to the tangible hacks, and they are super good at the end, but I purposely put them towards the end of this episode so that you stick around for some of my woo interpretations of time first. So let's start with a dictionary, because hey, dictionary, it's like the rules, right? It's like the Bible of languages. And so according to the dictionary, I found two definitions of time that came up right away. The first is actually, it wasn't the first, it was the second, which we'll come back to in a moment, but I'm going to read it first. So the second definition that came up, which most of us will probably agree with, is time. It's a point of time as measured in hours and minutes past midnight or noon. The first definition that came up, which I found quite interesting because that's kind of what we're going to tap into a little bit, it was a little bit more spacious. That definition is: time is the indefinite, continuous progress of existence and events in the past, present, and future, regarded as a whole. And then in quotation marks to give it context, it's got travel through space and time. So it is so interesting how like even in something as commonly acknowledged and I guess basic as a dictionary, there is this sort of dichotomy of time, which we will explore. So look, this is where I really want to lead into with this. And it's the fact that time is relative. So we all have our own perceptions of time. There is no one set right way. Like we all experience it differently. And it's not finite or external. Like someone cannot just give you more time, you know? It's like you hear the saying like you can't buy back time, or like if you're like, oh, I only have this much, like it's not as linear as we would, I guess, like it to be. And so not all units of time are equal. My financial coach and mentor puts this so nicely. Kate Northrup, she speaks about how the 1 minute that you spend, or the 5 minutes that you spend waiting in line for your coffee, are very different to the 5 minutes that you may have spent holding a newborn for the first time, or you know, some other kind of like really intimate purpose-led experience. Similarly, not all tasks are equal. So there's quite a bit for us to dive into, and we're just going to start with the perception of time as the linear and all that is. And I'll give you two angles. Both have very much a lot of crossover. Both are valid. And again, as everything on this podcast, if it resonates, amazing. If it doesn't, that's okay too, right? Like, I'm only here to share what I have either learned or gained access to, and that I feel will be of value to you so that you can get closer to living the life of your wildest dreams. So let's start with the Vedic perspective of time first. Now, the Vedas are an ancient study of life, so to speak. It originates from India. And to be honest, my personal belief is that a lot of the teachings that come from through the Vedas and through these ancient texts is how humanity used to perceive life for so long. It's just that throughout colonization and all of kind of human development, you would have heard of things like the burnings of the books and the witch hunts and all this sort of stuff. Like, there was a conscious effort made to keep certain information hidden from the general public. And the reason that most of this information has managed to be preserved in India is because of the Himalayas. It's so hard to get there. It is so hard to cross over and kind of dive in. At least that's how I resonate with this explanation. Is it also why Sanskrit, which is the ancient language, it is like the most ancient language that we know and have kind of studies on to this day, also originated from Vedic teachings and from this area. So yeah, just a little kind of side tangent for you on where this is coming from. So from a Vedic perspective, there is a teaching on 3 different concepts of time. There is the idea of course, linear time, which is what most of us live and breathe by, right? Where if you imagine it, and I learned this from my meditation and manifestation teacher, Emily Fletcher. So she put this visually so nicely for me in her Ziva Magic course that it just like kind of opened something up. So if you imagine a line in front of you and it is a horizontal line, and in the middle you've got the present, and then wherever on the left or on the right you've got the past, and then on the other side you've got the future. So the linear perception, the karma kand, which is the Sanskrit pronunciation of this, is this perception of time that past, present, and future are all happening separately. Now, in the Vedas, the teachings state that as we shift and change our states of consciousness and awareness, we can start to emerge into this vertical sense of time. So if you imagine that line, it does a little 90-degree turn where all of a sudden past, present, and future are still happening separately, but they are happening simultaneously. So they are separate, and yet they are also happening at the same time. That is Upasana Kand. And a really great example of this is in this vertical sense of time. You are here right now, right? You are here in the present listening to my voice. And as you have your awareness on my voice, you can also probably go back in your memory and remember the moment that you pressed play on this episode where I spoke to you about the time management hacks they don't teach you at school and gave you a little story about the clocks turning and my mom and that sort of stuff. And at the same time, you can probably also project your awareness into the future where you will have finished this episode and you would have walked away with not only these learnings, these teachings, and also some tangible action steps and strategies that you can use right now. So this is Upasana Kand. This is this simultaneity of consciousness where you can hold past, present, and future in one. And again, I know that some of you, like, your head might be hurting right now. It's okay. My head was hurting the first time I heard this as well. And this is where practices like mindfulness, like meditation, they equip you to be more conscious and aware and capable of holding these multiple states of consciousness at the same time. So those are just 2 of the types or teachings of time from a Vedic perspective. Now, you might have remembered I mentioned there were 3, and that is what is commonly known in, I guess, our modern world as like the bliss field or the unmanifest. You may have heard me speak about it in one of my other episodes. I think it was episode 7, where I talk about kind of you as awareness and this kind of bigger picture of us. So it is this samadhi, this where all time, there is one time and it is now, and there is only one thing and we are all it. That state of consciousness is Gyandakand. It is where you are To quote Emily Fletcher, you are dancing in the ocean of time and it is all it. I know we are all the way in the woo, my friends. If you are still listening, thank you. It's just about to get even better. So this is the Vedic perspective. I'll also give you an ancient Greek perspective because you might be like, oh, this is like so left field. Well, I mean, we know that like the ancient Greeks were basically the founders of modern civilization as we know it, right? Like they are the ones who set up the anthropology and law. And I've actually literally got a statue of a Greek goddess in front of me, which is so interesting. Aphrodite is just like staring at me like, yes, we did. Let's go. So anyways, the ancient Greeks had two words for time. They had chronos time and kairos time. Now, chronos, and I again just learned this recently as I was researching for this episode, still appears in our language to this day in words like chronological, which is so interesting because it's like, yeah, chronos time can be measured. It is that linear time, right? It is the quantitative force of time that allows societies like ours to function because you need structure, right? Like if you do need a balance of feminine and masculine energies. And it allows us to say things like, we're going to meet at 1:30 and we both have this anchor of time and we know when 1:30 approaches and we meet at that time. So that is chronos time, linear time, basically. It's the karmakand type of time. And then the ancient Greeks speak of kairos time. Now, if chronos time is quantitative, kairos is qualitative. I'm going to say that again. If chronos is quantitative, kairos is qualitative, which is the moments. Think the euphoria you feel after running a marathon or holding your baby in your arms for the first time or having a really deep, meaningful, authentic, intimate connection with someone. And I had this just today, just a few hours ago, where I was so deeply immersed in conversation with someone and I felt like maybe a half hour had passed, but it had been over an hour. I was like, whoa, where did the time just go? Like that is kairos. And there's a quote from The Whippet, which is a newsletter that kind of dove into this a little bit, where the author wrote that kairos time measures moments, not seconds. And in addition to that, it refers to the right moment, the perfect moment, where the world takes a breath, and in that pause before the exhale, fates can be changed. I mean, just let those words land. My goodness, they are potent and powerful. So those are some of the different ways that you can perceive time. And so with that eyes open experience that you now have of like, oh, I guess time isn't just this like linear chronological thing that we have been indoctrinated into. I would love for us to step into exploring your relationship with time, because the thing is, like, time management, it is such a buzzword that people throw around all the time, right? My God, is time even a word anymore? You know, when you like say a word so many times and it's just like, what? Anyways, this is happening in this episode for me. So your relationship with time, it's complex. And yes, you have a relationship with time. Like, you may have never thought of it in this way, shape, or form. But the reality is, just as you have a relationship with your parents. So for example, my business coach had a really great parallel where it's like, you have a relationship with your father, and that might be one specific relationship and dynamic. And at the same time, your father also has a relationship with like his college buddies, where it's like from his crazy party days, or it might be the relationship that he has with his partner. You know, it's like the father or the person is still the person, but they have a relationship with different people. And just as we have different relationships with different people, we also have a different relationship to time, depending on who we are, how we grew up, the environment, the things we were taught, the things we believe, and I guess the programming that runs our little monkey mind. And the great example of this that I've got from my real life experience is I noticed this once between my mom and I. So I kind of spoke to this earlier. And one year we were both on holiday and we had a clock in front of us. And we had like different activities and stuff planned, etc. Right. And so I'd be like, okay, well, we need to make sure we're there by like 4 o'clock. And it's 3:45, right? And my mom's there like, oh, cool. Okay, so we have like half an hour. And I'm like, okay, we got to go in like 5 minutes. And so it was just so interesting to witness. And I observed that dynamic for that whole holiday as I was kind of looking at how we're both looking at the same clock, right? Like we're both looking at the same arrowhead, etc. But our perception, our relationship with time and how we relate to what that arrowhead means was so different. Because in my mom's view, it was like, I've got all the time in the world, sweet, perfect. And then in my view, it was like, okay, well, got to make sure I'm early. This is like, we're running out. So that was quite interesting. And time scarcity is something that so many of us struggle with. I'm going to be honest, like I am far from perfect. Like I still deal with this every single day. I'm working on, the programming, the limiting beliefs, etc. that are in there. And I'm doing my best to make a conscious, concerted effort to experience time abundance, because it is like we can all be time benders if we are given the right tools and stay consistent and do the work, do the mahi. And the reason that this is so important, like the reason it is so important to heal your relationship with time, is that time is your greatest asset. Like Chronos or Kairos, Karmakand or Gyandakand, we in this physical 3D reality have an expiration date. And there is a set amount of time that we have between now and that expiration date. We don't know when that might be. That could be tomorrow. It could be in 50 years. We don't know. But the thing is, like, you cannot buy your time back. And so many people spend so much of their life worried about making more money and being more quote unquote successful or whatever it is, while they're sacrificing the quality time with their loved ones and their life and their well-being and their health. All for what? Because like you've never heard someone on their deathbed say like, oh, I wish I worked more, right? It's like most of the stories that you hear, and there's a study I haven't read, but I've heard of the study where someone interviewed people on their deathbed, and I believe there's a book written about it as well. I'll do a bit of research, and if I find it, then I'll link it up in the show notes. But effectively, it was all these reflections of people who it was heartbreaking, because it was like, oh, I actually wish that I just enjoyed the present moment more. I wish that I'd been more playful, that I wouldn't have taken myself so seriously. I wish I would have told my friends and my loved ones that I loved them more. It's things like that. And yeah, you're never going to be able to physically buy time. Like it is your most valuable asset. And so what I have noticed is that how you treat your time is very much a mirror to how much you value and respect yourself. Because if you don't value, and this might be getting a little bit much for some of you, I understand that. Like sometimes I know that I will say things and they could trigger you. That's because I'm just a mirror. Like I'm just saying things, and whatever kind of might come up right now in this moment is just a reflection of what is hiding perhaps in your sub or unconscious mind. So at the end of the day, Like it could be that on some deeply unconscious level, like I'm not saying that you know and you're consciously doing this, okay? Most of our behavior is unconscious and it is like happening without us even knowing about it. So if on some unconscious level you feel like you are not worthy or not good enough, or you don't respect or value yourself and your contribution to this world in some way, shape, or form, that will reflect in how you spend your time. So if you spend your time overworking, you are, doing ridiculous hours, or you are numbing away in front of the TV, or you are doom scrolling, and you are not happy with how you treat your time, it is somehow a mirror to something deeper that's going on within you. And there's also another component of it that is, we spoke earlier about like people running late and just having a different perception of time. Like, yes, there is the perception piece. And there's also, again, it comes back to like your unconscious beliefs, desires. And there is a book that I will link up in the show notes. It's called Existential Kink by Carolyn Elliott, which talks about a lot of the things that we experience in life that we don't enjoy are actually driven by our unconscious desire to experience them. So what do I mean by that? It's that the fact that like, say like you're always running late for appointments, for example, like there's a part of you that loves the rush of running late. And it's like, oh my God, am I going to make it? Am I not going to make it on time? Oh my God. And it's like, ooh, it's like activating and exciting. I'm sure some of you listening now are like, oh yeah, shit, I think I experienced that. Or it could be a thing of like, maybe you don't respect the person, or you feel like it's a power kind of dynamic that you like, oh, I can be late because I'm more important. Or maybe it's an avoidance. It's like, I don't want to do this, so I'm not going to show up, or not going to show up on time. So there's like so many layers to this, my friends. And so I just wanted to kind of make a note to your relationship with time, and just perhaps maybe to start to explore what that looks like, because you can read all the time management books and listen to all the time management podcasts and whatever in the world. But at the end of the day, if you have limiting beliefs of scarcity around time, you will always feel like you are running out of time. That is a capital T truth. But awareness is the first step to change. You are still listening right here, right now, which means that you are already in the present moment changing your future. Like you are, all time is now. And just by listening to this moment, to this podcast, you are already changing your relationship to time. So I know this is like quite loaded. With that in mind, I'll now sidestep and give you some of those practical tips that I actually promised at the start of the episode, because look, I'm a woman of my word. I'm going to deliver what I promised, and there are definitely a few things that I want to talk to that will be really helpful time management hacks that they don't teach you at school, because I really have a lot to say about that, but I'm just going to park it for now. Okay, so some practical tips. Tip number 1 is become aware of the phenomenon of context switching. It is insane. So context switching is the loss in time, effort, and energy when you switch between projects. And that loss of time, energy, and focus when you switch between projects or tasks that you are doing is between 10 to 20%, because you step away from that flow state, right? So if you think about it, like I'm sure many of you can resonate with like being at the office and you're like really deeply into a task, you're like in the zone, or you're like writing this email, or you're working on a report, or whatever it is, like whatever you're doing, you're just like in the zone, you're in the flow state. And then it's like, oh, okay, well, I got to do this next thing. Or like my biggest pet peeve at the office has always been like people shoulder tapping me. And it's like, hey, do you have a minute to chat? And it's like, do I look like I have a minute to chat? But anyways, that in fact, even just that one shoulder tap has just cost me between 10 to 20% of my productivity. It's a big reason why I'm like a strong advocate and supporter of people working from home, because you actually get more done, and you can use your time more wisely. But anyways, so yeah, it's just debunking that myth that multitasking is like so great, because no, you actually lose momentum. And in fact, these studies that have been done on context switching show that it takes up to 23 minutes to recover from interruptions. So call it like your cost of context switching, right? So if your day is structured in a way where you're working on this task and then you got to go to this meeting and then you're going to do a couple little more bits and pieces on that task, but then you've got another meeting and then, oh, damn, the deadline came up. So you've got to switch to the other task. Like, you are losing so much time. It is all going to take you so much longer than if you structured your days and your weeks in the way of grouping all of these things together. So say, and I'll kind of do a little asterisk because I've got something to add to this, but like, let's just say you do this one particular task for a couple hours first thing in the morning, and then you have a specific time block in your calendar that's open for meetings. So people know that this is only time that they can book meetings with you. And then you have like this other piece of time that you have for another task that requires. So there's still context switching, but it is not as frequent. It is more structured and you don't lose as much productivity. All right. So that is my tip number 1, is be aware of context switching, and thereby also with the intention of structuring your day in a way that you bulk as much time as you need to complete a task or a project. And we'll talk about that in a moment as well. My second tip, and that kind of ties into what we've just spoken about around context switching, is to use your energy wisely. So we are all different chronotypes, which is, if you don't know what a chronotype is, it basically means whether you're like a morning person or a night owl, or there's like people in between as well. So we all have different times of peak productivity moments throughout our days. And like most of you listening probably know when that is. Like, I don't know about you, I am a morning person. I know people who are total evening people, and there's also an Ayurvedic link to all of this that I will probably talk about in another episode because I don't want to go off on too much of a tangent. But effectively, what I'm trying to say is know when you are at your peak energy levels so you can use that to your advantage. So for example, me knowing that I am a morning person, I will generally do my most focused resource energy intensive work first thing in the morning. And by the way, that also includes like going to the gym or something, because it is so freaking hard for me to do that in the afternoon. I'm fried, I'm done, I'm spent. And that also goes for like, meetings, for example. If it's a more important meeting where I need to be switched on, I'll probably pop it in the morning. If it's like one that is just, those meetings that are just like for the sake of having a meeting. I'm sure we have too many of those in our calendars, myself included. I'll put those in the afternoon because I'm like, I'm not using my peak productivity for that. Why would I do that? That's such a poor use of my time. So that's number 2. Number 3 is honor your ultradian rhythm. Now, what is your ultradian rhythm? So you may have heard of circadian rhythms, right? Like when you fall asleep and you go through different sleep states where you're kind of in this theta state to start with, which is like this kind of half waking, half dream state. And then you drop into deep sleep and then you're in rapid eye movement. And you kind of, if for those of you who have like fancy little monitoring devices, you probably have seen the little charts that show how many sleep cycles you've gone through. Hopefully it's at least 4, but anyway, we're all unique and different, and that's enough content for another episode once again, which I am taking diligent notes of because I think it's pretty cool how all of this is coming up. So we've got Ayurveda and sleep to talk about in one of the upcoming solo episodes at some point. We'll find out. Okay. So your ultradian rhythm is basically your daytime version of your circadian rhythm. And we're, again, all quite unique, but it generally runs on like a 90-minute cycle, roughly. Some people more, some people less. And it's basically saying that there's a wave of peak productivity that you have for a specific set of time. And then that starts to wane, and your body and your mind need a break. Like, you just need to take a break. And I don't mean like, scrolling or going to the bathroom. That's not a break. That's just like I mean, yes, for some of you, it might already be extreme. I know I facilitated an podcast interview today where, someone shared that they had like timed how much time they would have in the bathroom. And you'll hear this soon. It's coming up in a couple of weeks' time. But it's like a conscious effort to take a moment, like even if it's just a few minutes outside. Personally, myself, my meditation and yoga nidra practice play a big role in that. But even just like sitting down and like, just give yourself a breather. And your body needs this. Like in a perfect world, and I know you're going to be like, oh my God, what is this woman on about? Like in a perfect world, what your body would love is like a 10 to 20 minute eyes closed break. Whether it's a nap, whether it's a meditation, mindfulness, whatever. Now, I understand, like even myself, right? Like we're all busy people. We all live in this modern world. Many of us don't have the luxury of structuring our days this way. That's okay. Like just do the best that you can. And even if that is like 1 minute. And that is how I started. So we've spoken about ultradian rhythms. And the thing is like what happens is that most people, and this like is bringing back so many memories of a previous experience in a really busy job. You'll just work and 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 work. And it's just like you've only had a moment to go to the bathroom. You're not even taking lunch breaks, right? Like I was at this burnout panel a couple of weeks ago, and 10% of the women in the room put their hand up when they were asked whether they take a lunch break or not. Like it's ridiculous. It infuriates me because your body, your mind, like you need that break, and you are losing productivity by the minute. Like if you actually honor what your body needs and you take that break, you are going to be so much more productive. You're going to be so much more effective. You're going to get so much more done and perform better than ever. And I know it's like probably going against the grain of like what every bone in your body is telling you to do, because we've just been conditioned to keep going and like all these back to back meetings. Like I've been there, and I've also seen firsthand how unsustainable that is. And until, society at large and corporate culture at large starts to wake up to this and equip us in a way where we don't need to hide in a bathroom stall or a sick bay to do our mindful practice or to take a moment of peace and quiet for ourselves, you've got to take the agency and take your power into your own hands and be like, okay, well, what is it that I can do while I am still in this environment that is not necessarily setting me up for optimal thriving? What can I do myself so that I can put me first? So those are my first 3 tips. Now I've got a couple of more for you, just 2 more. So you may have heard me mention this on the podcast a couple of times here and there, but there's a phenomenon called Parkinson's law. I'm pretty sure it's Parkinson. We're just going to go with that, which is that work expands or contracts to fill the time allotted. So what does that mean? It means that like if you just show up at the office and like you've got this big project and you're just going to keep working on it, and it's just going to take as long as it takes, and it is going to eat up all of your time, and you're going to be like, oh my God, where did the day go? Versus, let's say if you structure, right, like context switching, if you structure your day and your calendar and like, okay, these 3 hours I'm devoting to this specific task or this specific project, it needs to be done by then, boom, all of a sudden it gets done. It's like this magical phenomenon that occurs, and I guarantee you it works. You just got to try it for yourself. I started to implement this actually like many years ago, and the more I did it, the more it worked, and the more I just saw how I myself started to become a time bender, and like the things just get done. So that is my tip number 4. Tip number 5 is opt out of urgency. Urgency isn't going to help you. Like, if you are trying to be more productive and get things done when your nervous system is out of whack, you're not sleeping well, you are not eating well, your mind feels scattered, and you just don't even know, your hand from a tree, you're not going to be producing really great work. And so if you can, I would really encourage you to just opt out of urgency, of this like need to rush. And it's like, you know what I mean? Like that kind of clenchy feeling in your chest, and you kind of just like constricted. And you're like, oh my God, I just need to get this done. I go away from blah, 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 blah. Like, guys, oh my gosh, guys, girls, whoever is listening. There's a reel that I share every now and again on social media that's like this visual of the planet, and just the planet spinning. And there's a caption on it. It's like the planet before your end of day deadline, and then the planet after your end of day deadline. And guess what? The world's still going to keep on turning. Everything's the same. Everything's fine. Deadlines are arbitrary. I'm going to tell you something. People are just making ish up all the time. And things, the processes, the meetings, the reports, like it's all made up. It's just all being created by people in boardrooms and meetings, and they might have a title and maybe a couple more zeros on their like paycheck, but like it's actually all just still being created by people. Like there is no need for you to bend over backwards and sacrifice yourself and your well-being and your health to meet some arbitrary deadline. If you need more time, please ask for more time. Like you are not, and I've just got like this immediate download of like, you know, perhaps there's this inner self-talk of like not being good enough or being incompetent or being judged or like, you know, not meeting your job's expectations or whatever. It's like, seriously, the amount of women I have spoken to like over the years, and I still continue to speak to every single day, who are sacrificing their life to tick a box. It is heartbreaking. And so you can just make that declaration now that you choose to opt out of urgency, and the things will still get done. But it just means that you don't necessarily need to be frying your nervous system and sacrificing your life for it, you know? So those are kind of my 5 practical tips, right? So the first one is like, be aware of context switching and how like there is a massive loss of your productivity and trying to do it all at once when there's like too much on the list. And there's the using your energy wisely and kind of choosing your peak energy exercises or times. The third one that we spoke about was the circadian ultradian rhythm, so actually taking a break. The fourth one was Parkinson's law, so giving yourself a specific allotted amount of time to get something done, and trust me, it will get done. And the fifth was opting out of urgency and coming into resonance with your nervous system. Now, what I did just want to also talk to is honoring your cyclical nature, which is actually an episode that was released just 2 weeks ago. So if you haven't listened to that, I highly recommend it. It is almost sort of a bonus, advanced, really mind-blowing, incredible way to work with your body. And I tell you what, like if you implement what you've learned here and in that episode, like you're going to be unstoppable. Like, I mean, you already are unstoppable. You are everything, and you are incredible as you are. And like with additional tools and implementing these tools, man, it's like the world is your oyster, my friend. So as we kind of prepare to bring things to a close, I just wanted to give a few examples of like how these concepts and theories look like when they're practically applied in my own life. And again, as I mentioned earlier, still a work in progress, right? These limiting beliefs, they take time to digest and dissolve, and like you just have to be ready to let go of them. Like I can't make that decision for you. No one else can make that decision for you. You are the only one who can make the decision of like, okay, you know what? This time scarcity mindset is not serving me anymore. I am ready to let it the F go. And so for me, for example, I really noticed the tie of it being linked to like the idea of like never enoughness. And so I just keep doing my own inner work. Like this is why I myself have coaches, and I do a lot of personal development things, and I read and like 20 million different things, right? It's like, because we're always working on ourselves. I do my top 5% activities in the morning most times. Like I really do my best to do my best work in the morning. evening. Although I have also noticed in my ultradian rhythm that I also have another productivity peak, like in the late to mid afternoon kind of time. So I know these things about myself and I schedule my life around that. I also, as I shared in another episode that I'll link up below, I focus on maximum 3 priorities on my to-do list every single week. Now, that doesn't mean that there's no other things on the to-do list, right? It's just like these are my key core priorities. This is where like my focus lies, and everything else is a bonus. And the great thing is, like, ever since I've implemented this discipline, 9 times out of 10, progress is made on these priorities because I don't like overwhelm myself with this context switching. Some of the other things I do that I've spoken about is blocking out chunks of time in my calendar to stay focused on a task. So for example, like recording this podcast episode, like gotta put it on the calendar, gotta give it a good chunk of time, like be in a role, and just use the fact that not only is like the setup all there, but like I'm also in the flow of speaking and sharing this with you. And I also, to take it back to some of the teachings that we dove into earlier about time and linear time versus all time is now and chronos versus kairos, is like I take a lot of time to reflect on how I spend my time. It's like timeception. And whether it's like in my weekly planning rituals, if it's my monthly planning or like my seasonal reflections, like whatever it is, like I take the time to look back, not just look ahead at where I'm going. And I take that moment to reflect on whether what I'm doing day to day is pulling me away from or closer to what matters most to me. And I course correct if needed, because, we're just like this ship kind of floating in the sea, and it's the same, like it's the same as life. Like we are all these sailors on a boat, and we're navigating the ebbs and flows and the tides and the storms, and sometimes we veer off even like just 1 degree off of our center, and so we got to course correct, we got to re-navigate so that we come back to our path. Like that's life. So this reflection is really valuable for me, and if ever in doubt, just coming back to presence. This is where the kairos lies. This is how you can bring your nervous system into resonance. So those are just some examples of how this shows up in my life. And I'm certain that many of you already have things that you do that you're like, oh, I didn't realize this actually like really helps me, and I'm going to do more. And perhaps there's things that I shared today that are like, ooh, I've never thought of it this way. Let me give it a little try and an experiment. And for your next action step, from here for this week, I would really encourage you to think about how you can create spaciousness in your life and your calendar, and just try it on. Try it on. What would it be like to not cram everything in? Like, what would it be like to not feel like I constantly need to do more? Because more isn't more. And here's the thing about kairos. Kairos can't be planned. These moments that you remember on your deathbed at the end of your time here, they're not the ones that are in your to-do list. They're not the ones that are on your calendar. They're not the appointments. There are those moments of presence, of virtue, of true human to human or human to animal or human to nature, whatever connection. So I would just leave you with that. Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode. I'm sure that there's quite a lot that it may have stirred in you. So if there's anything that you would like to chat about, just send me a DM on Instagram. And if you are curious about this work that we have touched on, let me know, because there's quite a lot that I weave in to my group coaching program that really relates to our relationship with time and so much more. So what you're hearing here today is really just like a little snippet, a little preview, the cherry on top of this really, really juicy, delicious cake. So without further ado, have a beautiful week ahead. I am so excited to listen. Oh my God, what am I excited to? I'm excited for you to listen to me next week, I guess. I'm excited to record my next episode at some point. I'm just excited to be alive. It's like life's good. So have a beautiful week. So much love. Bye for now. If the word mindfulness has ever felt vague, overwhelming, or just a little out of reach, I created something just for you. Live in presence. 8 days of mindfulness is my free online course that gently walks you through everything I wish I had known when I first heard the word mindfulness. It is a soft, spacious introduction to presence. There's no jargon, no overwhelm, and no pressure to do it right, quote unquote. So over 8 days, you'll receive short, grounded lessons and simple practices that you can weave into your real life, even if you are busy, tired, or feeling totally out of sync. And the link is in the show notes below or through the link in my bios at Levenberg. Because presence isn't something you have to earn. It's something you get to return to. The views and opinions expressed by guests on Resonance are their own and do not necessarily reflect the views of me, Viktoria Levenberg, Live in Health, or anyone working within the Live in Health brand. This space welcomes a diversity of ideas, experiences, and stories, and part of Resonance is learning to take what aligns and gently leaving the rest. Also, while I am a national board certified health and wellness coach and deeply passionate about well-being, this podcast is intended for educational and inspirational purposes only. Resonance does not substitute personalized medical, psychological, or therapeutic advice. Always seek guidance from qualified professionals for any physical, emotional, or mental health concerns.